50,000 years ago, hunter-gatherers wore amulets of animal teeth and bone. Today, body decoration continues as one of our most vital art forms. Peter Tully is one of a number of craftspeople who've responded to mainstream body adornment with their own decorative guerrilla warfare.
I started urban tribal wear because I saw society breaking down into a whole range of little groups, from the surfies and punks to the ladies at the bowling club, and to me that was like little urban tribes. So I did work which related to that and hoped visually to perhaps represent some of the ideals of those particular groups. I use a lot of found objects in my work and a lot of consumer goods. I do this because they're accessible, people relate to those items, and I can afford to make pieces on a large scale which perhaps I couldn't do if I was working in another medium. One of the materials I've used recently is holograms, or holograms printed on foil, which give an incredible range of colour and depth and great luminosity, and changes constantly depending on the light source. Now, this is a very exciting material for me, so I thought I'd make something diametrically opposed to the idea of that material, and what I came up with was a business suit.
The elegant simplicity of the silver work of Helja Larsen and Durrani Lewis marked the renaissance of contemporary Australian jewellery in the early 60s. But from the beginning, they also explored the possibilities of alternative materials.
I think there's a time in all jewelers' life when they're working with silver and gold, they want to use colour. So we searched and we found this wonderful new material, the acrylic. We started to experiment with it first in some handles, but later on we put it straight into the jewellery using the rather delicate colours of these early acrylic pieces.
Used as a transparent glass, the acrylic inserts made their silver jewellery lighter and more wearable.
And then we moved on in the 80s where, in fact, we were very concerned about the notion of precious materials being an expression of wealth and power and a form of investment. So we deliberately used paper and tin and copper and all sorts of odds and ends from the kitchen to say things that were really very provocative. They then became symbols of growth or peace or the fire as a result of the nuclear bomb and the aftermath, all these sorts of images that we were working with at that time. They were very direct.
For Kate Durham, the problem of how to deal with precious materials has a simple solution. Use junk instead.
I don't think it's particularly difficult to make gold, silver or diamonds look very beautiful. So it makes more sense to make jewellery out of things that are discarded or rubbish. That's more of an adventure, it's more difficult. To the design has no appeal for me. I tend to see more and more in dense work, in patterning and decoration. Sometimes it can be like looking in a microscope. You tend to see worlds or whole universes within small or fragmented areas of decoration or detail, and that's what I'm looking for in my work.
The recycling of junk materials has found its way into the work of several Australian jewellers. Susan Conn, who normally works with sleek, simple forms, found the possibilities of her scrap heap too strong to ignore.
The idea behind these brooches grew out of wanting to prick the assumptions about wealth value and the concept of preciousness in jewellery. There was all this aluminium scrap lying around the workshop, which had evolved from the making of all my other pieces. And it reminded me of the French artist César, who back in the 60s crushed up utilitarian objects into sculpture. And I thought it would be rather fun to crush up this scrap into bar brooches and exploit the decoration qualities of the material.
Rowena Goff's early jewellery was in precious metals, but her search for alternatives led her to ancient materials.
Originally I began work with paper and with wood, to try to free myself up from some of the restrictions and limitations of working with traditional materials such as precious metals and fairly traditional training. And it became increasingly important while working with paper to try to bring out the qualities of the material by twisting it and tearing, layering it and painting it. And I think that allows for a stronger connection between the maker and the wearer and possibly the audience, and to bring or to strengthen the emotive qualities of material is to strengthen the quality of touch between people. These pieces virtually lie dormant without the action of the body. The body brings them to life, and they're in need of the motion of the body to give them importance and strength and depth, and to give a strong relation as perhaps a second skin.
One of the things which fascinated us right from the beginning was the movement of the human body. It was as if we could see that the jewelry had to move with the body.
The work only becomes alive when it's worn by people. So it's a natural progression then to think about how can one make it more in harmony and sympathy with the human body.
For West Australian jeweller Dorothy Erickson, the maker's own body is an important starting point.
When I come to design a piece of jewellery, naturally I'm designing for my own body because it's the body that I have around me. And I like to make sure that everything is eminently wearable, regardless of whether it does or doesn't look wearable. I like to make a model or a prototype and wear it for a month or so, like this one. And I put it on the body and check whether the pieces look physically how I wanted them to look, if I've achieved the visual effect. And then I have to try and wear it, say, for a few days, for a month, depending on how tricky it is, to see whether it is comfortable, whether it does what it's supposed to do, because I like my work to be worn, I like it to be practical, and even though it doesn't look wearable, I want it to be eminently wearable. When I come to design jewellery, I design for all parts of the body, but I find more challenge in designing rings and bracelets and neck rings, which confine some part of the body and are in touch with the skin. It's more interesting and more challenging than designing a brooch, which is just pinned to a piece of cloth and can be worn anywhere. The rings, bracelets, neck rings are all an extension of the personal space.
Nadia Makagawa has invented a dual life for her rings and brooches. They are also freestanding sculptures, and from this more distant approach, she's forged a new relationship with the human body.
I'm interested in man-made structures, particularly architectonic forms. And with these structures, I can then define a space in which the viewer is encouraged to approach, perhaps through a doorway or stairs, so that mentally they can explore and move through the piece. Working on such a small scale, there's another dimension there that doesn't exist in any other art form, I feel. People automatically want to come and surround it, because physically you can surround it, and that's, again, I think why I work on that scale, because I can control it and I can surround it.
Anne Brennan's work has focused on the body as a way of understanding our personal and public selves. This approach is intensified by the text Anne has written to accompany her work.
My recent work deals with unspoken language. My set of mouth objects deals with the ways in which society and sometimes specific relationships cause you not to speak or to lie.
A subject is raised which the liar wishes buried.
In the dark, the faceless one makes himself known to her. When she seeks comfort, they offer her instead a nightmare on the end of a spoon. She swallows unwillingly, but he waits, deeper yet.
The liar in her terror tries to fill up the void.
She finds him naked in the bath with his tongue torn out. The tongue says, the one who has done this has no face. The water says, I will hold him up and conceal nothing. But she knows she told him once she loved him, when in truth she was only afraid.
The liar suffers from amnesia.
His gentle hands seem at odds with the violent transactions between them. White flags or elegant weapons, she asks herself. A kind of love is bought at the cost of forgetting, not remembering.
I mean, the presence of a body in a piece of work is in some ways always some kind of sensual or an erotic relationship. And for some reason the mouth, I guess because it's an orifice, is particularly ambivalent site for a piece of work to be. My response to that is that yes, it is confrontational and it does have a kind of erotic charge, but I don't really feel the need to apologise for it. I actually think that it's healthy for the debate in jewellery to encompass those issues as well. The objects for the hand are about gesture, which I see as the involuntary and unspoken language of the body. I drew on a portrait by Titian, which uses a very formal gesture using a gloved hand. Instead of being flexible in the way that leather might be, these things that I was making were these fine steel cages which hold the hand in the gesture of the man. So that instead of being flexible like a glove, your hand's actually trapped almost. They look a bit surgical, they look like the aftermath of plastic surgery or something like that, which was, I suppose, a very felicitous carry on from the idea of things being stitched together, and probably adds another layer to that idea of remaking the surface of your body.
Gary Greenwood is a Tasmanian leather craftsman who's also ventured into controversial territory. His work is intimately connected with the human form, but it avoids the many stereotyped images of the erotic.
I have favourite places, everybody does, you know. It can be anywhere, it could be an elbow, the back of the neck or something. And you find a lot of my work alludes to those sort of places, little dips and hollows. And leather is an ideal medium to do that, because when you wet a piece of leather, you can get all those little dips and hollows and bumps and lumps and things so easily. The body panels were made mainly because I just love working with human form, and I wanted to represent human form in its realistic state. Against the solidity of the human form, I've used various aspects and qualities of leather, the main one being the stretching quality which creates tension and the illusion of what might be underneath that stretched leather. The horn has always heralded major events throughout history, battles, victories, defeats. And it occurred to me that the horns could equally be in conflict with humans. An idea came to me where I paradoxically put the two together and imagined a battle between the horns and the humans. This resulted in a series of work on wind instruments that I called wind form. There is, of course, quite a strong sense of humour and absurdity underlying most of my work. One particular piece I can think of is the buffalo hide saddle with the brass bell on the front. One can imagine a very macho male riding in this saddle. And the saddle horn itself I replaced with what's called terret, which is the little brass bell, which I thought was rather appropriate for the image. I obviously wanted to make it look as if they're comfortable, as if it could be fun to ride, as if somebody had already ridden in it, and therefore the imprint of their backside was still in it. works that I've made, quite often got bent noses and distorted eyes, and some of them go the other way. They're not quite so grotesque, but they're more simplified, where they're actually deadpan instead of elaborating deformities. And so they tend to be very simple. But there's always an element somewhere that identifies them as being a particular character, which can be identified by the viewer.
Costume is a crucial means of transporting us into the realm of ritual and magic. Designer-maker Patricia Black has pursued this path into a mystical past.
I describe my work as ritualistic because it derives in many ways from ancient cultures, where the sacred vestment is imbued with the mystical power for its wearer to summon the gods. The femme fatale that features in some of my work is an archetype rather than a stereotype for me, because she's like a female persona who exploits her sexual attraction to gain personal power for herself.
la 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 la